Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's session. My name is Iskia, and I am one of the event planners for the Redmond Reactor Space. Before we get started today, I've got a few things I'd like to go over. So, if you could please take a moment to read our code of conduct. Basically, we seek to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. We encourage engagement in the chat, but please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional, and if possible, please try to stay on topic. We'll definitely be sharing useful links throughout the chat, so keep an eye out for that. And the session is going to be recorded and will be available on demand in about 24 to 48 hours on the Microsoft Reactor YouTube channel. Which brings us to today's session. It's scheduled to run approximately 30 minutes, and there will definitely be time for questions at the end. So with that said, I will now turn it over to our speaker for presentation.
Awesome. Thanks, Askia. So welcome, everybody. Super privileged to be here to talk to you today about how to leverage the Queues app in your Microsoft Teams phone system. Really quickly, just to do some quick introductions, I'm Adam Ball. I'm a Microsoft Teams MVP and have been in the industry now for almost 15, 20 years. And so from that standpoint, love to be here, love talking about this. Really quickly, just a little bit about me. I'm really passionate around the community and communicating out about what is happening within the unified or converged comms space for Microsoft. So much so that I've got heavy involvement in a community-led conference called Comms Be Next that you can check out if you connect with me on my profile here. Would love to see you there and have more conversations in a face-to-face component. But as we get going here, really what I want to do is just this talk came out of Microsoft Ignite from the show floor, and those sessions were designed to be about a 10 to 12 minute session. So as Askia said, this is designed to go 30 minutes. We'll definitely have time at the end for comments or chats or questions. But hopefully when you get done here in about 15 minutes of my talking, you will know exactly what the Queues app is and how it can help you within your environment. So as we jump in, let's talk about what is the Queues app. First off, it's not a contact center. I hear this a lot from folks who come into it thinking, oh, Microsoft's released a first-party contact center, and they did. It's not the Queues app. That actually is the Dynamics Contact Center. That is the first-party contact center that Microsoft released back at the second half of 2024. Really what the Queues app is a call handling feature of the Microsoft Teams client. And so when you get to the Queues app, you're able to be either an agent or a supervisor, and we'll talk about what that means here in a minute. And so from that standpoint, really what it's allowing us to do is have a new way to interface with our auto attendants and call queues that we've already had for years within Microsoft Teams. It is a Teams premium license that is required. So that is required for anybody who needs to be in the Queues app. So if you are a supervisor and you want to be able to manage people, or you want to be able to see the real-time stats, and we'll get into that here in a minute, then you need the Teams premium license. If you are an agent and you're just receiving calls, but you don't ever need to be in the Queues app, you do not need to have a Teams premium license to be able to answer those calls. Those calls can still come to you through an auto attendant and call queue. It's only if you want to be able to take and place calls through the Queues app and interface with those auto attendants and call queues through the Queues app that the Teams premium is required. Now, my deck here is slightly dated. The desktop client was the only spot where you could get the Queues app. It is now on your handsets as well. So if you've got a handset, you can get the Queues app on the handset as well. So that actually launched right at Ignite. So right as I was, like, literally the same day I gave this talk at Ignite, that was released. So I didn't get that quite updated in my deck here, but that's probably the biggest important piece. So couple other comments here, and what you can see is when you've got the Queues app here over on the side, a couple of things that I want to highlight for folks is that Once you've enabled a user for Teams Premium, and then you've pinned the Queues app for them on the side rail, it can take actually up to about 48 hours before it might show up. So be patient. I've worked with other folks, and we assign it, and people think, oh, I just need to restart the client or whatever, and it doesn't show up for a day or so, and then it does. So just be patient. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of time before that Queues app will show up, but usually it's within 48 hours it'll be up and going. The other thing that I want to call out is the app will automatically appear. So if you haven't pinned it for the user on the side rail, the user can actually go down to the triple dots or go down to their apps button and just add it in on their own as well, once that time has passed and everything like that. Now, one feature that people ask a lot about, and before we go in and start diving into this, a lot of people will ask about a feature is, do I get barge and whisper or listen capabilities? Those features are on the roadmap. If you've been paying attention to the Microsoft 365 roadmap, it is out there. And so be paying attention. It's not quite there yet, but it's coming soon. All right, as we move on within this, where would I use this? This is the next question that I get frequently about the Queues app is, well, Adam, you said it wasn't a contact center, so where would I use this? And what we find in Microsoft Teams phone system is that there are a lot of situations where a full-blown contact center may or may not be needed for your organization. We're going to talk about folks like the IT help desk, HR. We see it in finance. Like HR is actually a fairly big one where you might have a group of HR specialists for your organization. They don't need a full-blown contact center. They're just trying to route calls and need a little bit better capability. Maybe you have an IT help desk that has a supervisor or a few supervisors, and you're tracking some metrics around that. That's a big deal as well, but you might not need full-blown contact center. Microsoft Teams has a very powerful call routing engine within the auto attendance and call queues today, where we can do presence-based routing. We can do round robin. We can do longest idle. We can do parallel routing. Lots of ways that we can route those calls to your folks, to the people who need to answer those calls. But you might just be lacking some of the reporting. You might need the supervisor to see who's opted in and who's opted out of the calls right now, but you don't really need that full-blown contact center. This is where the Queues app can really, really help folks within that. So let's take a quick dive in, and let's take a quick look at the layout inside of Microsoft, the Queues app here really quickly. And so as we go through this, and this screenshot's a little bit older from Ignite, but nothing has changed here. So when we look at the layout, this is the Queues app here now. And so what you end up with is you have your queues at the top. We have I'm my agent here. I've got this, and you can see that I'm opted out of this queue at the moment. And I can see who's opted out and who's a lead. I can see the real-time activity of how many people are waiting. So if I'm a supervisor, this becomes a really big issue for me as far as it goes, to be able to see what's happening in a quick glance. I can see how many unanswered calls. I can start to see the longest call waiting time, things like that. So very easy to use, very easy to manage, and to just be able to quickly look. So this is very much as an agent or as a call handling tool. This makes life super simple, and it just gives you a little bit more information than if you were just using Teams auto attendance and call queues on their own. So this is just a quick glance at the layout. As we go into this, let's take a quick look at the agent and supervisor functions here. And so as a supervisor, I have this ability to basically see what people are doing. So I can see Mandy's currently opted out and offline, but maybe she came back online and forgot to opt into the queue. I can come in here and I can just automatically opt her in, which is super helpful from that standpoint. I talked to a lot of customers. And one of the big struggles for their supervisors is that their agents forget to sign in. They also forget to sign out at the end of the day. And so if she was signed out and offline and I knew, hey, it's 6 o'clock, she's off shift, I can go ahead and opt her out as well. And so as a supervisor, that's really important. Also, when I click on her, I can start to see how many calls were presented to her, how many calls did she answer. I can see a lot of that data in order to know how Mandy is doing as in regards to taking calls at that moment. All right. So as we look at our queues here really quickly, all the queues that I am a part of will show up at the top. And this is really critical. I've actually had some folks who are like, I've got people who are in 27 queues. Well, those 27 queues will literally stream across the top with a little scroll bar here that you'll have to scroll back and forth to find the queue that you need to be looking at that moment. And so that can become unwieldy for folks. Oops, let's go back here really quickly. And so that's probably one of the bigger things here is that I can just see those queues right here to be able to manage them and to jump back and forth on them. All right. So probably the thing that people want to see the most is the real-time analytics. This is really neat. This has been something a long time coming, all the way back from the on-prem days when we had Link and Skype for Business. If you've been doing this that long, like I have with Teams, now we can actually see what's happening. So this is real time. And what I can see is I can go in and I can see how many total calls are happening right now. How many calls are, how long is the caller sitting inside of the auto attendant. So maybe I have a really long auto attendant where I'm finding out that people are having to bounce back and forth before they get to my call or to my agents. Maybe I'm seeing that I've got an auto attendant that has a really long menu and our average time in that auto attendant is really long. That may be something that I want to go back and clean up on as far as it goes. I can start to see which key options get selected. So now if I know 0 is for operator and I see a whole bunch of those getting chosen, I know that maybe I don't have my auto attendant set very well in regards to what needs to happen for next within those things. So I can also see what happens, like where am I getting transferred to? Am I getting transferred, are my callers getting transferred to the right place? Are they going to an application like a call queue? Are they going to an operator? Are they going to a user directly? And I can also see what's happening, and this is when it's initiated by the caller, but I can also see what happens if it's initiated by the system. And what that means is maybe the auto attendant times out. Maybe the caller chooses not to make a selection. What's happening within that from that standpoint? One of the key things here on the real time, and we'll address this, is when you're setting up the Queues app, one of the things that you have to do is you have to set your voice application policy. Almost drew a blank there. Voice application policy. And in the voice application policy, you need to make sure your real-time stats is set for only the authorized queues and the authorized auto attendants. If you set it to all, you won't get your real-time stats. And that's really important to note because if all of a sudden you're not seeing anything in your real-time stats, it's probably because your voice application policy is set incorrectly. So that's probably the biggest tidbit that we can share with you today. When you look at your auto attendants and queues, as you go down in the real time, it's going to give you the titles of your auto attendants and queues and all your agents here. And so what's interesting about that, and we'll get to this in the historical analytics. So as we go through this, and we'll highlight historical analytics really quickly. But the big thing here is now when you go from the real time to the historical, your auto attendants and queues are actually called by their resource account usernames. So in this case, my queues test app that I was using to demonstrate this is actually called the Queues CQ. And that's my username for my resource account instead of the official title of that call queue. So instead of the actual name, it's using the resource account name. And so something to be aware of if you don't have a good naming convention. I don't think in my demo environment here that I have a very good naming convention. And so that's kind of showing its issues right there is that if you don't have that naming convention, that can become very confusing really quickly. The other thing that I want to highlight here in the in this window for historical analytics is going to be the fact that your dates here, and so this is back from when we were doing this at Ignite, but you get 28 days worth of historical information. So you're only going to be able to go back that 28 days. So that's really important to note. If you're looking for longer term historical data, the Qs app isn't going to provide that. And the reason for that is Microsoft's limited by GDPR components here. And so with that, you got to just know that you're going to be at that 28 day limit. But once you go through this, you can start to see what you get for the historical data. You can see what your average wait time was before a call was abandoned, how long it was before it was answered, how many calls were what was your volume during that time frame. And obviously, since this was a test queue, just to showcase what the Qs app can do, I don't have very high call volumes within this. And so with that, we can kind of come back in here and look and see what's going on over a date range. Do we have one day where maybe we have a lot of abandoned calls, and we can go back and look and say, oh yeah, well, we only had, we had a staff of 5 and 3 people called in sick. And so we had a lot of folks abandoning calls. And as you go down, you can see your call volume and how many agents were opted in and things like that. So super powerful for the Qs app in order to know what's going on within your auto attendance and call queues. Super powerful ultimately, and really brings a little bit more robustness to what's coming out of the box. And when you start to look at it, that cost of Teams Premium adds a ton of value just within the Qs app, whereas comparing it to a full-blown contact center, you may be spending $75 to $200 per agent in a contact center solution, whereas the Teams Premium license is significantly less. And so you may be able to achieve a lot of your business requirements from there. Let's take a quick look here. I think we are pretty much at the end. Like I said, this was designed to be about a 12-minute talk for Ignite, and we are at the end. So at this point, you should know everything that you need to know about the Qs app. Number one is that you need to have Teams Premium license to get it. So you assign the users that need to have access to the Qs app. You assign them a Teams Premium license. Wait up to about 48 hours to make sure that they get it. They'll have it after about that, within the 48 hours. Once they have it, if you've got a policy that you want to pin it with, you can do that for your users. So it just shows up on the side like what we have here. If not, they can come down to apps and just add that. And then from there, the one other key thing that I want to make a comment on that I missed, apologies here, is, and let's actually go back a couple of slides, to our agents and to our supervisors. So this is kind of a key one. Inside of the Qs app, one of the things that we call, actually, I'll go back to the Qs, to my supervisors page here. So as a supervisor, inside the Qs app, they call that a lead. And what that is that is actually designated by the authorized users inside of the call queue or inside of the auto attendant. So once you're inside the call queue and you say, here's your authorized user. So in this case, I've got Jeff and Torin that are assigned as authorized users. They're able to go in and make modifications to the call queue, but they are also considered supervisors at that point in time. And so they would be able to manage any of the people that are agents within that. So that's probably the last key component here as we talk through that. And so hopefully with all of that, you've learned something about the Qs app. I'm going to check in and just see if there's any comments or any questions here. Can the data be exported? That's a great question here. So let's go back over to the slide here real fast. the data can be exported, and it will just drop out when you click that export button. It'll allow you to download it. Now, it will only allow you to download it for that 28-day period. And it's a rolling 28 days. So it's from today and going back 27 days. So as you go forward, if you wanted to go in and export every day, you would be able to gather that data on a rolling window. I think that's the one comment. Any other comments or questions? If you do, please drop them in the comments, and happy to answer questions that come up. Otherwise, we may be done. So quick, easy 20 minutes. Now you know everything you need to know about the Q's app. It's very quick and easy to set up. So hopefully you'll be able to find utilization in your organization with it.
All right, Adam, thank you so much. It looks like there's no other questions from the audience, so we'll call it a wrap. Great session. Thank you so much. And for everyone out there, we appreciate you tuning in today. We are always looking for feedback and options on how we can improve our sessions. So if you have anything to contribute or have any comments that you'd like to share, feel free to use that survey link that's on the screen. The key thing that you'll want to take into consideration is the event code, so we can match it up with today's session, and that is 24754. Once again, that is 24754. And with that said, we also have been asked to let everyone know that we've got our Microsoft AI tour that's going to be taking place here shortly. So the cities that are going to be involved in that are listed on the screen. And if you have any desire to check that out, please do. Put the AKA link on the screen so you can get more information there as well. But with that said, we will call it a wrap today. So once again, thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Adam. And I hope you all have a great weekend.